It's simple mathematics. Check it out. I revolve around science. What are we talking about here?
Okay, we're going to look at using the patterning placemat and how we go about finding the parts of a pattern and finding the algebraic expression. So here's our placemat, and we should remember where the parts are in terms of what we're doing. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and model a pattern, and there we go. Okay, so we have our pattern. And then we need to look at it in multiple representations, so we're going to go ahead and do that. First thing we're going to look at is the pattern. All right, in this case we have two blocks for the first term. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 blocks for the second term, and then we have 2, 4, 6 blocks for the third term. And then if we were to continue, we would have 8 blocks for the fourth term. Okay, now I've left the first space blank because that is going to allow us to look at the 0 term, and we've done that in class. So this is 0, and then we have term 1, term 2, term 3, term 4, etc., and so on. Okay, so if we notice that we have to skip by 2 each term, and that could be these blocks here. All right, so there's 2 and there's 2 more. Okay, and then if we were to go back 1, we would see that we would go back by 2 and we'd end up with 0. Okay, all right, so in this case now we have kind of our pattern starting to build, so we can transfer the numerical list to a table of values. So we're going to start with our 0, and then we are going to go with our first term, second term, third term, fourth term. And then we just copy in our values from our list, and we ended up with 0. Then we have 2 blocks, 4 blocks, 6 blocks, 8 blocks. Okay, so we can then describe our pattern. We start with 0 blocks and add 2 blocks each term. Okay, and then we have to kind of transfer some information to help build the algebraic expression, and this is sometimes where it is a bit tricky. So we can see that we have our skipping, skipping, skipping by 2. Okay, and in our notes we realize that this is the coefficient. So our coefficient is 2. Now, where we find the constant is always at the 0 term. Okay, always at the 0 term. So in our case here, we have a constant of 0. Okay, now to build the algebraic expression, we have to think of the pattern as it applies to each term. So if we want to find a pattern rule, we have to think about it as any term. Okay, so we let n be any term. Okay, well, how do we get the value of any term? Well, we have to increase it by 2 each term. So we can see that our coefficient of 2 has to be present. We apply that for each term in the sequence. Okay, so then for any term we can just use a placeholder or a variable. All right, and then we have to add the constant. In this case, our constant is 0. And you should know what happens when we add the 0. We don't really do anything. So in this pattern, we can get rid of that. So we end up with 2n. Okay? So now we need to test our pattern. So we write 2n is it for our first term. And then I'm just going to keep the same color. So 2, and then we substitute in for our first term. And then this tells us to multiply 2 times 1, which gives us 2. And then we do the same thing for the second term. Equals 4. All right, and then 2n and 2, which equals 6. And we can see that this applies to our pattern over here. All right. So then, given a problem, given kind of other information, we may want to test it with this, but we can test any number in the sequence. So maybe I'm going to see what the 10th value is. So I'm going to go 2n, which is equal to 2 times 10, which is equal to 20. And if I continue this pattern to the 10th term, I should have 20 blocks. Okay? The last step we need to think about is creating our table of values. So we're going to write our term number along the bottom because that's where it goes. Term number. Okay, so then we need to draw our line so that our first term starts at 0 in this case, and then it goes up by 2 each term. So term 1 is going to be there, and this is basically the line that's going to go here. All right, so this is our line for this pattern. Now, where we find the parts, we have the coefficient is kind of happening here. Skip by 2, and then 2 more, and then 2 more. So as we go out one term number, we go up 2. Out 1, up 2, out 1, up 2, and then we can see our pattern. Okay? So that is, in a nutshell, how you use the pattern placemat. Your constant becomes an add-on, and your coefficient applied to the term number, and we use n to represent any term number.
It's simple mathematics.